Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly webinar. My name is Justin Cooper. I'm a hard money lender and a full-time real estate investor. Each month, we bring in some of our friends in the industry to share their expertise. This may be through a presentation, like when we talk about self-directed IRAs or title insurance, or we may simply interview our expert friends and dive deep into how they got started, where their investing has taken them, and what they see coming both for themselves and for the industry. Now, this webinar is brought to you by Pine Financial Group. Pine Financial is Colorado and Minnesota's premier hard money lender. Pine focuses on the needs of Colorado and Minnesota real estate investors. We are investors ourselves, and we know what it takes to get deals closed. Everyone at Pine Financial Group is dedicated to the success of its clients. We only experience success when our clients are succeeding, so we have a habit of telling you when a deal should and should not be done. And isn't that what you want from a professional in the industry, especially someone that you trust as an advisor? You will benefit from our honesty and integrity when you choose to work with us. Tonight's webinar brings in a longtime friend and investor, Anthony Verch. Anthony and Cassie Verch quickly realized that they no longer wanted to trade their time for money and began searching for what would not only help them be their own boss, but get them the freedom that they had been looking for. They started investing in real estate in 2014 when they joined a coaching program and really started dedicating themselves and working hard to achieve their goals. Since then, the couple has completed many many successful rehab projects, including a teardown and new construction, multiple wholesale deals, multifamily and commercial properties, and grown their rental portfolio. They have a wide variety of acquisition strategies as well, including direct mail, bandit signs, MLS auctions, utilizing wholesalers, but their greatest is networking. Anthony, I told everybody just a little bit about you, but why don't you go ahead, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we can dive into tonight's presentation.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin, and thanks for having us on, and all the guys over there at Pine Financial. And everything in the intro I can attest to. I've been around the industry for a while, and you guys were my first hard money lenders. First and only, actually. I've never had to venture very far because when you find something that works, you don't have to try to find something better. And I really don't think you will. So, yeah, basically, we started out in the single family industry, and it was great for getting off the ground and everything. And now our direction is kind of advancing towards commercial. But actually going to that a coaching mentorship and program really got us in focused on what we really wanted to do in life, and getting I guess trading our time for not so much for money, but just short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. So we really busted our butts in the first 5 years being in business now, to where I've been doing this for almost 2 years full time, and the freedom has started to come back and return. However, we're not out of the woods yet. We definitely want to keep doing what we do, and eventually it'll come time to retire my wife as well.
I love it. I love it. So for everybody on the call, we can certainly be interacting with Anthony. We're going to be jumping into the questions section. So feel free and jump in there if you have any questions for anything Anthony's talking about as he goes through this presentation. Drop it into the questions section, and then I'll jump in and be asking those questions of Anthony.
All right. Well, then should we get started?
Ready when you are.
Perfect. All right, this is a little presentation from how I had a full-time job to full-time real estate entrepreneur. I'm Anthony Verch. I'm with HC Revolutions. We are a home renovation company here in Minnesota, and my wife, Cassie, and I have been doing this business for about 5 years. I for 2 years full-time now. Basically, who am I and why am I on this event tonight? I wanted to first thank Pine for having me on. I wouldn't be here, honestly, if it wasn't for them to actually take the plunge in the first project I ever presented to them. It was a renovation project. They walked me through a lot of the do's and don'ts. Like, I was going to be putting in washers and dryers, and they're like, "Why would you do that? That's a waste of $1,200." So basically, they took my repair estimate from $70,000 and whittled it down to about $47,000. So that way I was able to make a much more of a profit on my rehab property, and not wasting a bunch of time and energy and money on things that aren't needed. But basically, my background started off in the automotive world. I was a restoration and custom painter and production painter We built Hollywood kit cars, such as the Monkey Mobile you see here. I'm the monkey in the far back on the Monkey Mobile. We did 2 of these for actually Speed Vision, a TV show. And then also we did it in 60 days. So basically, I went from rehabbing cars to then rehabbing houses. And this is another one. This is the 1966 George Barris Batmobile. I did 2 of these, and they got sold to both of these got sold to museums, one in Chicago and one in Florida. I'm telling you this because I knew nothing about the real estate investing world when it came into this, but everybody I was building these cars for made their money and gained their wealth through real estate. So I knew there was something I had to do, something different. Not to mention that it's very toxic working with a lot of these products here. So basically, what made me dive into real estate? It was something from a young age. I either wanted to own a body shop, but I also wanted to own the shop that the ground the shop actually rent from, because I understood how things work. So I wanted to own my own business. And I saw from a young age a lot of the successful people were entrepreneurs, and I was always willing to work hard. But trading my time for money was not something I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to build something sustainable and something I could pass on to my kids. I have, as you've seen in the pictures before, I have a son, Brody, 5.5 years old, and a daughter, Evelyn, who's just turned 3, and a wife, Cassie, and I won't say her age. But so basically, I knew the automotive career was hazardous to my health, and it was a limited amount of time. People in the automotive world retire early; their body gives out on them, and I just wanted something that I could have something my wife and I could both enjoy, my kids could be part of. And so we looked into even buying like franchises. We were looking at like buying Chipotle, Subways, Papa Murphy's. It just wasn't the right fit where we wanted to be. And I created a few inventions, brought some and hold patents, but I'm still waiting for those to take off. So I couldn't sit around and wait for much longer. But basically, we heard an ad on the radio for a real estate, come for 2 hours, then it's a 3-day and everything. Well, we bought into it because we had the drive and the attitude that we wanted to do. And basically, all my clients, my high dollar clients that were in the automotive world, basically were in real estate. So I knew I wanted to do something like that. Here is my son Brody and my daughter Evelyn and my wife Cassie. They pretty much are my why. Everything I do is to make sure I can spend more time with them. Since I have been doing this for 2 years, I mean, this morning I got up, I made eggs and pancakes and bacon for the kids. And my daughter still goes to daycare. My son goes to preschool. So basically, I still do work generally during the day, but my time is a lot more flexible. I can decide when I'm going to start my day and when I can make my 2 kids breakfast. It's just having the flexibility and the time to do so. It's on my own choice, and that's why I chose real estate investing. After meeting my mentor, basically, Than Merrill, you can see there, he's with Fortune Builders, which is a great program. Not everybody needs it, but I needed it. So it was after a boot camp in Dallas. I had actually been in the program for about 1 year and 2 months, and I had a lot of personal stuff while we were working through. I was really busy at work, health stuff. So basically, all those were types of excuses why I haven't excelled in real estate yet. But I went down to a boot camp in Dallas, came back fired up, ready to go. Within 3.5 weeks, I ended up getting a property under contract. It was word of mouth. I started networking, just telling everybody what I did. It ended up being a probate deal. So I actually put the property under contract, and I had to wait 70 days for it to get out of probate. So I put a 71-day inspection clause on the property just to tie it up for that long. We put an extended closing date, just so that way no one else would come in. And basically, the family wanted to sell it to me. It was a great family. In my hometown, it's a smaller town, but everybody knows everybody. But I think they kind of wanted to sell to me to see what I was doing and get my business kicked off the ground. I didn't lie to them and tell them that I've done multiple deals. I'm like, honestly, I've gone through this mentorship. I've got all this training. I know what needs to be done. I just haven't done it yet. And it worked for me in their position. They actually all follow me on Facebook now. I love to see comments from them every time I post some before and afters of rehabs. After having my first rehab done, I was able to invite the whole family out for a family open house and show them that the house that they grew up in. There were 6 children, so they all got to see the house, their home, being transferred into a home again. So it was just kind of a unique side that I guess a lot of people don't bring up in the business world. But as far as every one of these houses touches someone, and not in every case. If you're buying from a REO or anything, but that buying probate's a very touchy subject. And that was his first deal. It was in Rosemount, Minnesota. It was kind of on a busy road, but it had a frontage road. But there was a college right across the street. It would have actually made a killer rental. It was a 6-bedroom, 3-bath house on 1 acre. I could have put it in student housing and everything, but the family said if I bought it from them, they wanted me to make a family home out of it, not student housing or a duplex. And it had a kitchen downstairs. You literally could have had up-down duplex on this. It would have been a great exit strategy. But after talking with the family, I wanted to do what's right with them. Like I said, I purchased it word of mouth through. It was kind of a probate deal, but it was funded by Pine Financial. And Pine, working with them and dealing with Sean, like I go to a lot of Pine's meetings. Sean would host here. He'd have some during the day. At that time I would skip work to go to the library to meet up with them for their like 10 o'clock meeting, just because that was a class I wanted to learn about. How to buy rentals with zero of your own money. Essentially, I had zero of my own money in my first deal, which I know a lot of people, when they say, even if I get my first deal, I don't care if I make any money. I just want to get my feet wet. I want to get a deal under my belt. Well, I'm going to tell you, I had so much spread on this deal that even if I screwed everything up, I was still making a profit because of the amount of work that it actually needed. And by going through everything with Sean, I was able to whittle down a lot of my scope of work. But then there was things where I added, or I was stubborn and I wanted to do some of the work. But we all know that I come from the automotive world and I'm not into construction. I mean, I'm handy, but I'm not good. So I've gotten a lot better over the years just by default, I guess. But on this one, I didn't know where the ARV was going to end up, but I had a hunch. I was pretty confident it was going to be in the 250 to 260 range. And when I purchased it, we were able to get it at a pretty deep discount, figure out what we actually wanted to put into it and the timeline. It took a little bit longer. Imagine that, first rehab, going over time and over budget. But basically, at the end of the day, the profits more than paid for my investment in my education. So what I paid to be part of Fortune Builders, it was essentially I made it all back on my first flip. So that really says something about it. About what I learned and what business I was going into, and the help through Pine. They've done many deals. I should have listened to Sean a little bit closer, but we all think we know best. So there's a lot of things I'd done differently. I would stick to your numbers and then listen to mentors or coaches or people like Sean. I kind of deviated from stuff. I made things a little bit nicer, or I started working on the project myself. So I'd work all day long and then I'd work on it after work. And realistically, yeah, it saves you some money, but it doesn't save you any time. And that's where putting in the work yourself just doesn't always pay for it. Not the set, there's a sense of liability there as well. So make sure you hire professionals that are able to handle jobs and protect you. So on to the next one. Then before I was even finished with that one, I actually ended up landing another deal that was brought to me word of mouth, but it was also on the MLS, which I didn't pick up. Actually in my hometown, but the same person that referred me the probate deal referred me this one. He's like, hey, did you see this house listed? And the reason I didn't look at it is because it was listed at $140,000. And at $140,000, this house makes no sense. But putting in an offer with justification, I ended up locking up this property at $77,500. So almost half of what it was listed. Basically, during my offer, I wrote a letter of the repairs and everything this house needed. And the sellers were like, yeah, I guess you're right. It actually does need that. We didn't know where to list this house. We just wanted to see what it was worth. And that was the high. And then they called for highest and best, and I resubmitted the same offer, and it got accepted. We ran into an uncapped well on the property, which we ended up having capped before we closed. But essentially, I ended up getting this house for about $75,000. And then I wanted to, I spent a lot of money on plans to draw this house out and add, put a second story. So my second project ever was going to do a pop top, which is not the best thing. But if it's your only thing, make sure you hire the right contractors. But then I ran into a lot of code compliance issues, and bringing up the energy code compliance up here. The walls just weren't thick enough to meet the energy code. So it was on a double lot. So, it was the last double lot left in the area. And this is on a very nice street in the town. And as you can see, it's kind of hideous hidden amongst all the trees. So we ended up, I went to the city. They're fighting me on, what I could do with this land. And I asked them can I just tear this down? And they're like, yeah, we want you to tear it down. So sometimes you just got to go to the city right away and ask them what they want you to do. And they'll give you ideas, in which I'll talk about in the future, or in a few minutes here on this webinar, about what actually we've done on some other projects in the same town. So by this, they said I could put one duplex on it or two single families. Well, every way I chopped up the numbers, it didn't make sense, because the lot was 140 feet wide, 200 feet deep. Okay, a single family lot has to be a minimum of 60 feet wide, and duplex or multifamily, duplex or triplex, it had to be a minimum of 75 feet. So with where I was coming up, it was just like so short that I couldn't put two duplexes on it, and the city wasn't allowing it. So basically I said, well, can I put one single family and one duplex on it? And they said, yeah, you can do that. So I had a petition to the planning and zoning and the city council, and everything went through. So basically I built a single family house on one side of the lot that I divided, and then a duplex side by side, one level living to accommodate for elderly, but it wasn't advertised as like an elderly home. But the highest step in the house was a threshold to get in the front door. So we have a 2-inch. And so it's wheelchair accessible and everything. I built it to last. So I sold the single family before it was even done, because I knew it would be a hot area, and then basically used that money to kind of fund my duplex. And essentially I was able to actually pull cash out of the duplex, and I was into the property entirely for about $14,000. And I had a duplex that appraised for almost $430,000. So that was one thing. I couldn't make any money out of two single families or rehabbing this house or one duplex, but by being strategic and thinking outside the box and trying to run numbers and talking with the city what could be done, I was able to come out very well on this job. But then after that, we ended up getting another deal before we even tore that house down. Actually, we ended up getting about 4 more deals before we even finished that one, because that one ended up taking a little bit longer once we finally finished out what we wanted to do. And we utilize multiple acquisition strategies. Basically, we're always scouring the MLS. We're slowed down on that this last year just because things were just flying off the shelf in our market. And I know there's a lot of people listening here in Colorado or Minnesota, but it was a very hot market for us here in Minnesota, and I believe it was the same in Denver, talking to some of the people out there. We kind of slowed down a little bit on this, and we were wasting too much time, because by the time we'd analyze any deals that hit or any property that hit the MLS, it was already under contract. So we slowed down on that. And then, we've bought properties off auction. Networking is probably one of the best that brings in the most deals. You let everybody know who you are, what you do, and where you want, and what styles of houses you want. Basically, when you start out in this business, well, I'm looking to I'm looking to wholesale until I get money to rehab. Well, most of the people you're going to talk to are probably doing the same exact thing you're doing. So if you get a little more specific and, a little more direct with, the neighborhood you want to farm, you farm that area, and then you really hammer everything in that area, you're going to be much better off than throwing. It's like the shotgun approach or the sniper approach. With a shotgun, you may get more action but less results, and at a sniper, it's more targeted and accurate. So basically, we bought from wholesalers, bird dogs. We've done direct mail, bandit signs, and our newest campaigns have been cold calling. We've had great success with that, and I know a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about that campaign. I've done a Facebook Live video on it once. If someone's interested in some of my new marketing campaigns, I'd be happy to share on what's working and what isn't working. In this business, I don't see anybody as competition. I see it as, if you're willing to put in the work and do it, then heck, you might be a new acquisition manager for me. Or hey, if it's working for you, great. I know if I give enough people what they want, I'll get what I want in the end. But honestly, I truly do like helping everybody out in this business. I'd rather spend a few extra minutes talking with someone or analyzing somebody's deal, taking a second set of eyes on a deal, rather than see someone lose money. Our focus is primarily under the 300,000 ARV, and I'd say we bumped that up now actually when we got a little more comfortable. However, I would still like to stay underneath the 350 ARV here in Minneapolis, because that's basically the highest demand. These houses sell in a heartbeat at that price. Obviously, we have to get them much lower than that. I do follow the Mayo formula, the 70% of the ARV, or minus a quality rehab there. So basically, we were getting a lot of first-time home buyers. And once you know what they're looking for and what the inspections are going to require, what the financing is going to require, you can really narrow it down and get a highly, niche product that you can sell in a heartbeat. And then, every realtor that walked through your property previously, they might be interested in your next one if their clients never got a property from the last time. So we started mainly in the South Metro. Like I was telling everybody, or telling you guys, is find an area that you can farm. And then once we got comfortable with contractors and got to, know the towns around us a little bit more, we expanded all over the metro area. But that's a big plunge too. And I know some people do some remote rehabbing. I just haven't done that yet. I stick with what works, and that's where I'm at right now. And dealing with contractors, I wouldn't rely heavily on one contractor, especially one-man shows. They're great for prices. They're not great on performance sometimes. And I'm not saying all, because I've ran. I had one contractor that I did a bunch of projects together. We did $250,000 in just labor one year, and then he ended up getting hurt. So the contractors have a shelf life, whether their body gives out on them or all of a sudden they find something else they want to do. So basically, you want to make sure that you have more than one contractor you're relying on. Even if you only have one project going on, you still want to be interviewing contractors, and just knowing what else is out there, and just telling everybody how you do your business, and you're sharing your scope of work. So a lot of contractors get impressed with that, because sometimes they get poor direction from I guess homeowner projects, and the advantage of working on these rehabs versus working on a homeowner project is, it's a vacant property. It's you don't have to work around the schedule of the homeowner, and not necessarily, but you don't have to be as picky, because if something doesn't liking to your taste, it may attract appeal to the masses. So, but always get multiple bids, even with your trusted contractors. Sometimes they start seeing, well, if you bought the house for this much and then you sold it for this much, you made this much, and they never figure out acquisitions costs, selling costs, realtor fees, anything that deals with it, and how we borrow our money. Contractors never see that. You can explain it to them, but they never, and then they don't, look at your marketing costs. If you're spending $5 to $10 grand a month in marketing, and you're getting, one deal a month and you're working on them, it looks like you're getting a bunch of properties, but he never sees what your actual expenses are. So sometimes they tend to bump their numbers up every now and then. That's why I always get the multiple bids. But stick to your numbers and follow your process. That's just huge. Whether you're on Bigger Pockets or any type of mentorship program, I know there's a bunch of mentorship programs out there. They all generally have a good idea of numbers or relatively close. But once you're dealing with your scope of work over at Pine, those guys help narrow it down, crunch the numbers for you, or add in a little more cushion. And then also dealing with any contractors right off the bat before any checks are given, contracts are signed. You make sure that you have a certificate of insurance, and if they have employees, you want to see a workman's comp policy. You get the W-9s up front. Just because all of a sudden, if you don't get a W-9 and I'll get you that W-9, I'll get you that W-9, because they're always busy, they're always in a hurry. Next thing you know, you don't get it and they went AWOL. So you definitely want to make sure you have all your signed contracts, your start date, your end dates, basically put together a nice sworn contract, a sworn construction statement, and make sure you do your lien waivers. There's partial lien waivers and there's final lien waivers. So if basically your electrician comes in, you need a third down, you get a partial lien waiver for your third. And after roughing, you pay your second third, and then you get a partial lien waiver. And at final, and after inspection passed, you make sure that you have your final lien waiver. And also one thing is a lot of people are stuck on numbers, and they always, well, I can't say always, but most of the times they end up doing the cheapest contractor. But that's not always the best case. It could be, but it's not always the best case. You want to make sure you have referrals. And here's another little tip that I came up with over the years. When you are interviewing a contractor, before he signs any contracts or design or a scope of work or anything, you make sure, and this isn't, so I'm a general contractor, and the reason I do this, or if you're project managing your own projects, what I do is I ask them for references of people in the trades business, not their trade. If they're a drywaller, I know they know a plumber, I know they know a tile guy, I know they know a painter. Well, I want 3 references of people that are in the trades. So then I can call those 3 people, and then now what did I just get? I got myself a new plumber, I got myself a tile guy, and I got myself a painter. So these are great ways to get other connections. And honestly, it looks really good on the contractor for him to refer me those guys' name. Be like, hey, I'm calling just to check. I'm going to have him do some work. Can you tell me a little bit about his craftsmanship? Is he clean? Is he neat? Does he stick to his numbers? Is this working out? And be like, also, I am getting some plumbing bids on this property. Is this something you have time and availability for? And is this something you'd be interested in working on? And then if he's like, yes, I'd be like, all right, well, here's the scope of work. You can go ahead and view the home. This is where it's at. And then if all of a sudden you choose to, look at his bids, and then if you hire him, get 3 more references from him. It's a great way to build your contacts of contractors in a short amount of time, and they're vouching for each other. Essentially, you don't want a bunch of people that are bad news on your project, because bad news can refer bad news, but it also, I've gotten some of the best contractors from some of my worst contractors as well. So it's kind of crazy how it all works out, but you can never have too many phone numbers to call and get quotes on. So that's why I dive into that. But yeah, I mean, hiring the right team, I'd say slow to hire, quick to fire. With contractors, I've gone through it where they drag it out, and it's like, God, we're so close. If I just give them another week, I'll go from there. The next thing you know, a week later, I'm just disappointed that I ended up doing it. So if they're not performing, you need to get them out of there right away. Have them finish up. Make sure you get all your lien waivers. You want to have a good insurance agent, so that way you're not overpaying for insurance for your properties. I'm actually a licensed general contractor, so I got to make sure I have umbrella policy or a liability policy, and then also a workman's comp policy. But you want to make sure you have good accountants, tax advisors, great realtors, suppliers, mentors, whether they're paid mentors or they're friends that you can call and grab a cup of coffee and pick their brains. Buying people, I think I seen an email from Pine saying, hey, can I buy you lunch? That's the greatest thing in this business when I first started out. Can I buy you coffee? Can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you a beer? Anything to get in front of some of these people, whether they're your mentors, or people that you can see as coaches that that are doing what you want to do, and then see if it's something it's fit to partner with them. Another thing on there is attorneys. You got to have a great attorney, just for all around. And then you want to have a great title company, but great attorneys know great attorneys. So whether it might not be their field of coverage, you're doing rentals, you want to get a good eviction attorney. I luckily haven't had to evict anybody yet. I've had a good luck, and great people in tenants living in my property. So it's crucial to have the right people on your team. And a lot of people ask me, well, leading up to it, well, when are you going to leave your job? When are you leaving your job? When you're doing all this extra work? I mean, you're really spending so much time doing this. When are you going to leave your job? There's no right time, but there's a time that it's costing you more money to stay at your job than it actually is if you were to. I think my daughter is coming down.
That's awesome.
Okay, mommy's got her. So, all right, sorry about that. Basically, I mean, there's never a right time when to walk away until you know that you're going to be comfortable. You got to make sure you have some reserves in the bank in case something doesn't happen. And I would say make sure you have a full pipeline. And when I say pipeline, you want to be 3-4 months out on your rehabs where they're coming in. You're going to be closing and purchasing, but you're also selling these. You don't want to be stuck with about 9 properties for sale, and next thing you know, you got no income coming in to make the monthly payments. Yeah, you can borrow it, and the way we look at it is we leverage these properties so we can try to have as little money as possible into the deal. That's always not the best case, but it's always nice to have less of your own money in the deal so you can do more deals. But also, if you have no money in every single deal, what's your limit and what's your threshold? And basically making up and keeping up with monthly payments. My wife and I had the conversation, well, who quits first or who gets to leave their job first? And it was like, well, I was already doing the most active work in the business, so it was fitting for me. And to be honest, in some area, it might have been better for my wife to actually leave first. She comes from the corporate world where things are done in order, and I think she would be a great foreman or project manager to run these rehabs. I don't know, there's a lot of plus and negatives to one way or another. Sometimes I feel for people. I get emotional with people where it's like, guys like, oh, I just really need some money, and those are the type of people when all of a sudden like, all right, my wife is handling checks from now on. And you got to know how to handle people when they're in that position, because they could potentially steer you down the wrong road, and you might pay out more than you should. So basically, we play good cop, bad cop, and it works out very well. And Cassie is still working full time. It just looks really good when we go to bank loans. Basically, for right now, most of our acquisition strategies or financing strategies with these properties is a bank in first. We have a great relationship with the local bank here. We get great terms. It obviously comes with doing deals, and actually it was referred to me, or I was referred to them by someone else that's been in this business that's done 200 plus houses. So it's great to have that introduction, and then you're able to have some leniency in lending or favorable terms. So basically all my bank asks is Cassie still have her job? And I said, yep. And they're like, all right, how much do you need? And I send over my scope of work, and the decision is made within 2 days whether they're lending on my properties or not. And then not all banks are like that, but it worked out very well for me. And obviously my first deal, no one would touch me. I was very new, and I didn't even know what to say. But after going to meeting after meeting after meeting, and I already had a relationship with Pine by going to their meetings. I got pre-qualified with Pine. They had all my information, so when it came time, I just had to update my financials, send it over to them, and we were approved in no time. It made it very easy. So, and also my wife does carry the medical benefits now. And it's stable income, which is very nice when you have, we had, mortgage payments that exceed $10,000+ a month, and obviously we have funds allocated for the rehab and for financing and everything, but it's always good to have a steady income coming in, because when you see that checking account for each, or the account for each property start dwindling away just because it's sitting on market, or if it's taking longer than possible, it's always good to have income coming in. So that's kind of why she's still at her job. She doesn't mind her job. She likes it. I didn't not like my job either. So that's where it was. Going back, I kind of would like it if she would have jumped in the job, full time, and that way I could blame other things on her, like she blames on me. No, that's the joys of being in business with your spouse. So this was one of our rehabs here. We ended up having a property tour with Fortune Builders. So after I'd been in the Fortune Builders for 3.5 years, they actually reached back out to me, and they seen, the volume in the properties I was doing and the activity I was doing, and they wanted me to actually be like the rehab ambassador. So basically, we had 3 huge buses, and which is, kind of cool stuff you see on TV. Show up to your property, we all view it, and it was a lot of it was a nice sense of accomplishment, and it was really great to be recognized and noticed like that. And it was our way to give back and share our experiences. I always share the good, the bad, the ugly. Where there's a lot of things where people in this business like, oh, I made $20,000. Like, okay, well, did you account for your time? Well, what was this? And there's a lot of things like, well, that's just what was left at the end of the day. That's what we made. But nobody really dives into the numbers, and diving into numbers is time for another, or it's for another time. But I share the good, the bad, the ugly, because nobody's going to learn if you don't. And I think that's what a lot of people actually need to know, rather than just looking at big checks. So after a while, I started attending numerous amounts of, I guess, meetings. And then once, I had my kids were getting older, it was like, okay, well, I really need to focus on where I want my time. Like, I got into real estate so I could spend more time with my family. And then all of a sudden I'm spending every single night out networking, which you should do initially starting out. But once you find, you'll quickly go through which clubs or meetings are the ones worth your time. So I started attending the Minnesota Real Estate Club. A guy by the name of Dan McCabe started it about a little over 7 years ago, and it was kind of meant to be like, this is a good old boys club, and not just boys club, a good old folk club where everybody can come, and we don't necessarily, you don't have, it's structured, but you don't have to dress up in suits to come here. It's supposed to be a relaxed, relationship building meeting, and where we bring in the experts, and much like Pine does with having like this webinar. And what actually struck me to be part of this is the owner, or the president of the club. He says, there's no expert fairy. And I says, well, what do you mean? He's like, there's no little fairy that comes up, taps you on the shoulder, and says, you're now an expert. And I'm like, okay, well, and I'm like, well, I'm not an expert. He goes, I'm not saying you are. And this was a few years back. And he said, do you think someone in your position 2 years ago would benefit from the knowledge that you have today? And I said, oh man, I learned so much in that short amount of time. He goes, well, everything that you learned in that short amount of time, he goes, I've been doing this for 20+ years. I've already forgot about it. I forget about that little nitty gritty stuff. He goes, so someone learning from someone in your shoes is going to be much more valuable because it's fresh in your mind. And plus the market changes ever so often. So by you able to share your information and the knowledge that you've already gained, you might not be able to help an experienced real estate investor out, but you're going to be able to help a lot of people just starting out in this. So I became really heavily involved with that. And then 8 months later, after attending my first meeting, I began to organize the meetings and help and speaking at it. I started sharing my case studies. And I wouldn't have done new construction if it wasn't for the club and the relationships. They hooked me up with the bank that I do. And it was really I don't make any money doing it, but it was my opportunity to give back to the community that gave me a ton. And I'm happy to do it. I host monthly meetings. It's the second Thursday of every month that we hosted in Bloomington. And I mean, you can find that on Meetup or anything, but it's just a great place for beginners, for experts. I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge in there. We talk about, current market trends. I bring in 1031 exchange specialists, self-directed IRAs. It's just fun because whatever I think the club should have a topic on, or my last meeting, I put topic suggestions for 2019. So basically, I can figure out what my members want to learn about, and then I just go call up anybody I know, or I call up the best person in that industry and say, who would you refer? And I've actually had people fly in to this club meeting on their own dime to come speak at the club. And we don't sell anything ever at this club. I have Pine come speak at this club. They're so knowledgeable. Having Sean come in there and just share his knowledge about the Twin Cities real estate market, and the numerous amount of deals that they've done. He's a local expert in my opinion. So I got my GC license basically to learn the building codes, and I could actually learn the lingo and talk with contractors and inspectors. It was great to save on the GC fees, and in certain aspects of the problems or projects. Projects, same thing, I guess. But basically, if it's out of my hands, it's not something I want to tackle. I'll still hire a GC to do certain projects. And right now, in my opinion, I learned a lot more, and it was very expensive for me to learn by doing it the wrong way. Where it's like, well, I think I can handle this. I'm going to project manage this. And then I had too much going on. I wasn't able to focus on it, and I wasted time. So my interest payments added up. I missed perfect market times on projects, so that cost me thousands. And not to mention having to redo some work. If I'm not going to be there every day, that's really why having a good GC and a good contractor on your team is so important, especially for experienced or people just starting out. And actually, I just started helping fellow investors out with their projects, and that's just an additional revenue stream. I'm a full-time real estate entrepreneur. I need to figure out, well, the more revenue streams I have coming in, the better. So, and also, I'm helping out other investors get their projects done because they keep getting, bad results with some of their contractors. So basically, I created a separate entity, and I started Mastery Builders. And things have been going great with that. We have multiple other businesses where we ended up actually started a nonprofit. So we're kind of in that mode where we want to start giving back. We call it finding home. Instead of finding hope, we want to help people find homes. And we also plan to build a few other developments, and that's also talking with the city, figuring out what they want, looking at comp plans. These are big things that I failed to look at in the very beginning. You're looking at 20, 30, 20, 40 comp plans right now, and the city, it basically is a roadmap, and it tells you what the city's going and wants and planning to do in the future. Well, now you know where to buy, what neighborhoods are going to be hot, so you can buy them as rentals for now and tear them down and rehab them later. Or also you can buy up the vacant land and you can do something. You can raise money to do so. It's endless. Cassie got a real estate license basically to sell our own properties. We paid $30,000 in commissions one year, and we're like, yeah, we kind of want to make sure some of that money comes back to us. And again, it's an additional stream of income. Basically, it gives us access to the MLS, and we also help other investors and friends and family buy and sell. And basically, we get to do our own negotiations for our properties. So we don't have to, we'll tell the agent this, and this, and it's a game of telephone. A lot of emails exchanged, a lot of text messages. And basically, if I'm negotiating my deal, not saying anybody's not a better negotiator, because there's plenty of better negotiators out there, but I'm going to be the best, or I want to blame myself if I didn't get what I want. No one's going to be a better negotiator on my behalf than me. And no one's going to care more about my business than me. So basically, by having the freedom and the ability of working full-time in the real estate and for myself, I was a commissioned painter, and I was mainly right-hand dominant. I ended up getting severe second-degree burns on my hand. So even if I had a job, I wouldn't have been able to work. So I'd have been out of work for that. And then you see there, that's actually a titanium clavicle. Basically, I shattered my clavicle. I hit a turkey on my motorcycle doing about 57. I was wearing t-shirt and jeans and boots. I was lucky not to hit my head. Basically, I threw my arm up to cover my head, and it shattered my collarbone. And I was luckily able to walk away from that accident. But nonetheless, I wouldn't have been able to work. So I was actually more productive sitting in a chair because all I had was my phone and my computer. And you can bet I was calling everybody I knew not to tell them about my accident. Half the people didn't even know what I was doing. Actually, the day after my motorcycle accident, I showed up my job site because I want to make sure my siding crew was done residing a house. But that's just me being stubborn. But by doing that, it actually removed me from the field, and it prevented me from doing any work at these properties where I was actually to be way more productive throughout the day by not doing any work physically. So it's kind of like a blessing in disguise, except for the pain and the insurance bills or medical costs. This was one of my first wholesale deals, what actually led me to one of my greatest private money lenders. It was just kind of a crazy thing where, I don't know, universal line, and someone was looking for a property, blah, blah, blah. And he was out of town. He's out of state. He was looking for someone back in state, his son. I was able to sell him the deal and still make an $18,000 profit. And they got this property for a great deal. I was able to assist with the rehab. And after all said and done, I found out I had a pretty healthy 401k that's in real estate. So that was, crazy. Just got to let people know what you do and who you are. And I'm not active on social media or LinkedIn if you look at it. I'm an investor in Facebook. I keep a lot of things separate. Just saying, life and business is business. So even though if you're an entrepreneur, your business and personal life are mixed together. Your kids my son was helping out. It's just fun to have them involved. It's just part of being an entrepreneur. To get work.
Hey, Anthony?
What I was talking about is,
Anthony, can you hear me?
what's up?
You were
I
breaking up.
Can you hear?
Yeah, you're breaking up pretty good there. Can you just check some of your plugs and stuff?
Okay. Yeah, I just did. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think that's all right. Let's try that.
It may be the internet connection. We really get so so I don't know. It might be the I kind of don't live in town. I live out in the country. I don't have the best internet out here, so I don't know if it's that or if it's my plugin's there. So
yeah.
So let me know. I could switch over to a hotspot, but
yeah, you're doing okay now. Let's see.
Okay.
How we do for the last few minutes here.
Anything?
Nope, I think we're okay. I think we're carrying on here. We didn't lose you too much.
All right. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, yeah. So then we found some land by looking at like the comp plan and talking with the city. I see that there was a no reserve auction going to be going on for this 1 acre parcel. It was zone B2 highway business, which means I could have put in like a automotive repair shop or something, just something small. I could have done in a small daycare. There wasn't much I could do on an acre on surface level. So I ended up looking at it, and the auction came up, and I said I was going to buy it. I was going to bid up to a certain dollar amount. If it sold for under, I'd buy it. Just taking the risk and the gamble, but I knew I couldn't lose. And it actually went for less than what I was actually going to buy it for. It was under advertised, and it ended up I get the highest bid out of, there was only 3 other bidders. So it was kind of nice. And it allowed me time and flexibility to close on this property to actually try wholesaling. I was able to delay the closing. The seller was more than okay with it. And so I tried to wholesale in the meantime, and I had some serious potential buyers in there. And then I was just like, this is one I don't want to shoot myself in the foot on. I don't want to say I wish I would have hung on to that. So I started going to the city and asked them what they want there, and they're like, well, why don't you change the zoning on it to R5 high density multifamily? And I was like, well, would the city approve that? He goes, not only would we approve it, we'd assist you in greenlighting the project. And I was like, okay. So at this point is ask the city what they want. And so I petitioned for rezoning, met with the planning and zoning actually the day after my motorcycle accident, and then they expedited my a city council meeting to the day of my surgery when I had the clavicle plate. So I actually got out of surgery at 4:30, left the hospital at 5, made it to the city council meeting by 6:30, and I had a unanimous approval of my apartment complex up to a 36 unit on this lot. So by restructuring, I made this piece of dirt worth a heck of a lot more than what it was. And if anybody knows, I mean, obviously in the Denver area and the Minneapolis area, that it is just hot for multifamily right now, and even surrounding areas. So this is a project that I'm currently working on. I'm actually in the position right now where I'm waiting for a few rehabs to sell before moving forward, because to get a full set of plans, engineering, everything done, I mean, you're looking at spending a lot of money. Just preliminary plans, we're looking at about almost $13,000 to $15,000. I mean, they would get me approvals, but then we still have to work, with just getting a phase 1, a phase 2, do some soil sampling and boring, just to see what type of compactions we have, whether it's virgin ground. There's a lot of things that rolled into it that I wouldn't have known how to do if I didn't ask the right people the right questions. So that's kind of a deal I got right in the works right now. Something that's exciting. Basically, I learned how through the club. I brought in some self-directed IRA guy, and he is like the best in the business. I actually introduced him to the guys at Pine. I don't know if they've talked with them. I think they've talked with them. I don't know if they're going to have them on or not. But yeah, I was able to complete. I set it up in September, and I did my first transaction inside my 401k, and had a property sold in 24 days. I made a profit of $18,000, and I utilized about $500 out of my retirement account. And so there was very, very little risk and a very great reward. But I partnered with an experienced investor that had done this, and we had split the profits. So I essentially made $9,000 profit. But now I have a very powerful tool that I know I can replicate and do again. So there's investment strategies. This is the first time where I didn't have to borrow bank money, any money to buy a house, on how I was able to structure this one. Basically, I wanted to let people know. They always ask, well, what would you have done differently? Don't do any physical work yourself. Your time is honestly best spent searching for deals, raising money, and focusing on what things are going to fill your pipeline. And basically, using your own money to save money on financing costs doesn't help you scale. Having your reserves available for when you need it most likely is going to let you be more free, rather than if I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to put $50,000 in my own money because it's going to save me $5,000 in financing. That is not how you get rich in this business. So don't use your own money. Your money is meant for marketing, lead generation, and reserves, just to have it. But knowing when to cut your loss with a contractor is a huge one. If they string you along, oh, I didn't get there, oh, I was sick, or my dog died. A lot of people die in this industry for excuses only. And I would say delegate tasks sooner. You hire a VA, hire an assistant, offload the lowest costing task first, or things that you're not necessarily good at, but you have a good. A lot of people's like, well, I'm not good at that, so I don't want to do that, so I'm going to outsource it. But make sure you're outsourcing something that is very detailed. They know exactly what they're doing, and they can do it way better than you. So, knowing when and what to ask help for. You know, in the amazing community, even people at Pine, if you run into people, you know, or if you run into a situation, chances are another investor in your area or someone you know has ran into that same issue. So why not ask someone and share some of your problems so we can all learn from it, or you can get the answer faster. And basically, another thing is, as I'm transitioning out of residential and working more into commercial, I actually ramped up my marketing twice as much as I used to, just so that way I could keep my pipeline full, not necessarily with rehabs, but with wholesale deals. Because there is an abundance of investors looking for properties and not that many properties, good deal properties. So by doing that is keeping my pipeline full, and I'm still be able to produce income while I'm transitioning into the commercial world. And if a nice rehab comes along, I'll go ahead and take it too. So this is honestly how rehabbing should be. Feet up on the desk, working with your cell phone and your computer, and building relationships with the people. So that's basically all I got.
That was awesome,
I
Anthony.
timed it right for you there.
Oh yeah, you timed out perfectly. It was great, man. I really love that last slide. The one where you go over what you would have done or could have done differently. I love it. So well, I really appreciate you taking us through this journey here. There was one question along the way asking if you would share the waivers that you collect from Andrew, and he shared his email address. So I'll pass that along to you if you're okay sharing that. And so now's a chance. If anybody has any other questions, we've got Anthony here for a little bit. He shared a ton of information, a very personal story of his, of course, and his journey, but he's got a ton of experience, a ton of connections. Anybody have any questions for Anthony as we're wrapping up?
And another thing for Andrew, ask your title company. They will do, or I'm sure Pine, do you guys offer a lien waiver, like a format that you guys followed for construction draws? Usually you won't release draws without lien waivers.
Yeah, we might have something that we can share as well. Absolutely.
It's mainly on the title company. So Andrew, if you're working with a title company or if you're just getting started, I'll be happy to email you a copy of the templates that I use. And also, but contact your title company. They should have a format that they would like to see as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially because if they're going to be closing it and insuring it, and they might be taking some risk, you know, in ensuring that all the that there will be no other lien waivers. They may have a certain form or a certain way they want it to show. So it's a great point to be reaching out to your title company, and of course, along those lines, to have a relationship with a title company.
Yep. And another thing is lien waivers for any amount of work done. My photographer signs a lien waiver. My stager signs a lien waiver. These are just easy. I actually put it into a folder and it gets sent to my title company and the seller's title or the buyer's title company to expedite things. So that way they don't think there's any pending liens on the property. Even if they do a title track, you know, they still have, 120 days to put a lien on the property. You don't want anything to screw up a clean closing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so here's a question. Who or how can they contact you and the Minnesota Real Estate Club?
Well, you can reach out to me on my personal Facebook page or the Minnesota Real Estate Club Facebook page, or it's called MNREC. So that's MNREC. So if you look up MN Real Estate Club or Minnesota Real Estate Club, basically anything on Facebook there, that'll get you the quickest message. We do have an email not an email, what do you call it? A website. I guess people still use those. So, yeah, basically, I think that's what mnrealestateclub.com. Yeah, there it is. Let me see. Yeah, so that basically our website is mnrealestateclub.com, and you can click on there and just hit contact. And
Perfect.
It will give you phone numbers or emails to follow up with, and I'll actually get an email directly to my email. So.
Perfect. So here's another question. How many single family homes did you have before you got into rehabbing and commercial real estate?
Before I got into rehabbing and commercial, or rehabbing in commercial?
Let's just call it the commercial space.
Okay. Basically, we have been a part of, and I share this. Like everybody's like, "Oh, how many deals have you done?" Well, I've done 22 deals, and everybody's like, "Oh, how many deals do you want to?" But it was 22 successful deals, like very highly successful deals, where I didn't take deals where if I was making 10 grand, I wasn't going to do it. So I didn't take everything that came my way. I made sure that there was enough profit at the end of the day, and that's one thing is where a lot of people want to get in this industry, and they'll take very little deals, where mine have been highly profitable deals, but I've also worked with other investors to build and finance and do unique deals. My idea of jumping into commercial, I wanted to do it sooner rather than later, but I also wanted to do it once I was in a financial position to do so. So it's not the number of deals that actually brings you I guess the confidence, the know-how. It's more so the quality of the deals, because you could do 100 deals, and if you made, $10,000 on each one, or if you did, 50 deals and you made $20,000 on each one, it's how much work for how much return, and that's kind of the way I look at it. But basically, yeah. So 22 deals before I ventured into the commercial world.
Perfect. All right, a few other questions here. So what is your favorite list criteria for marketing to sellers via mail and or cold calls?
Ooh, okay. Well, I try to target my list because cold calls can be expensive. And if you don't have money to market for 3 to 4 months without seeing a return, don't start it. Dial the phone numbers yourself. I actually develop a list. I don't buy lists. Well, I buy them, but I create them. So basically, I like absentee owners that are non LLC or corporate owned, because that tells me somebody is owning this property in their personal name. Chances are they don't want to be a landlord. They either got married and they moved in, their spouse moved in with them, or they moved in with their spouse, or they had bought a property, maybe they moved out of state, relocated, anything. And I also look at when they bought it. I don't look at people that had bought it within the last 3 to 5 years. I look at, so like right now, I do houses from 1950 to 2015, because chances are if they bought it in the last 4 to 5 years, they bought it as an investment property. They just don't have it in an entity because they probably bought it with personal financing and not commercial financing to get better rates. And then most likely they end up may quit claim it. But basically, I'm looking for accidental landlords, because those are people that don't want to deal with the tenants and toilets. And a lot of people, what happens is they got married, they moved in with each other, and then all of a sudden, well, my sister or my brother or my nephew need a place to live, and they have underperforming rentals, and they should be getting 15 to 1800 bucks, and they're only getting $1,000 a month because it's family. So that's kind of what I target, and I do it by county specific. So that's a lot of secret there.
Perfect. No, I appreciate it. That's great. Really appreciate you getting in depth on that. So how many properties do you have for rentals right now?
Rentals, we actually sold off this last year because, I mean, the market was pretty hot. Right now, we're down to 3 doors. Basically, we cashed out because we wanted to move. We knew we wanted to go in the direction of commercial, and I knew I was going to need a lot of money to do so. And how we're doing it, we're going to end up structuring a lot of 1031 exchanges. So by doing that, we were able to sell off and get a nice sizable chunk to move into the resident or the commercial world. So 3 doors right now.
Awesome. And so here's an interesting one. What are the different successful exit strategies that a newbie should know?
Well, it depends on where you are in the project. Obviously, if you get a property under contract and you need to, you can't come up with the financing, you can always wholesale it. And if you don't know who to wholesale it to, you can always reach out to local groups like, MinRec. We have, a very large cash buyers list, or you can reach out to people at Pine that know other investors that can perform because they've already had a working relationship. So wholesaling is always your number one. refinance and rehab. You can refinance into your personal name. You can refinance into a commercial loan, or if you have a loan with a bank, you can always do a mortgage modification. So rentals is always good. Or you can sell it on the MLS. You can talk to certain people. It depends on what it is. You can look for people that are always looking to buy properties with their retirement or retirement accounts. There's always different strategies to sell it. If you're talking about a property that won't sell, I heard one time that there's only two reasons a property doesn't sell. It's priced too high, or people don't know it's for sale. So you can test the market at higher price, and advertise the heck out of it, or drop the price until to where it will sell. Basically, I always try to get every realtor that looks at one of my properties opinions of price, and instead of say too high, too low, okay, where do you suggest that this property should be listed at with its current conditions, finishes, and area? What do you peg this price at? And I'm not looking for a CMA. I'm looking for a shot from the hip from this realtor. Whether they're experienced or not, I don't know this at that time, but I always ask what they're, in their professional opinion, what they think the home is worth. So then you can adjust accordingly if the masses feel that this home is priced too high, and I can also reduce my price to a sale point. And be quick to get rid of problem property. I have one that's sitting for a little while, but it's a river home. It's a 5,000 square foot river home. It's not the best thing to sell in the wintertime. So I know where it's at. I know what it's worth. I know what I got into it. You know what? I'll sell it. It'll sell. I don't know when, but I'm not too worried about it right now.
That's awesome. So here's a good question. What separates those who are successful from those who are not in this business?
Honesty and integrity. There's people money makes people do weird things. And I've seen it, and there's a lot of people that come in this industry and think they can take on the world, and you can be a cheerleader, and you can listen to motivational videos, and next thing you know, you're just going to be successful. Well, no, your mindset has to completely change, and you got to make sure you're doing this with honesty and integrity. You have to be open about things, and I think a lot of people end up just clamming up. The success rate of people that go through a mentorship program is about 2%. That means 98% of people never do what they paid thousands of dollars to learn how to do. But if you do it with good intentions, I think people are going to see it. Even if you have a deal go sideways and you explain to your investors what's going on, be like, hey, I didn't account for this. I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this right. Do you have any suggestions at this point? And they would just be like, well, pick up your phone and call and network with everybody. That's why I tell everybody, before you ever close on a deal, let me spend 5-10 minutes on it. Chances are I know the area. I know all around the metro area. If I don't, I know the statistics to look up to find out if that house is going to be a deal. I can run a quick mail formula on it. And, some people like to stretch that mail formula. Stick to your numbers. Do not exceed a 75% loan to value with investors' funds. If you want to bring in your own money, that's your own choice. But there's a reason that rule is out there.
I love it. That's awesome. So is there a certain property type that you like to target? Like a 3-bed, 2-bath, a 2-bed, 2-bath, something like that? What gets you going?
Honestly, what I've found is townhouses are my absolute favorite, because I don't have to worry about a roof. I don't have to worry about windows. I don't have to worry about siding. I don't have to worry about a garage door. I don't have to worry about an entry door. I just got to worry about making the inside really, really pretty. And chances are I'm looking at townhouses built between 1979 and 2005, because in 2005 I still seen in townhouses they're putting in that honey oak cabinets and Formica countertops. Now people are okay living in townhouses because they don't want to snowblow snow, and they don't want to mow their lawn. They don't want to take care of that stuff. They want to live their life. They want to go to the lake on the weekend. And basically it's a lot less work and a lot less money to fix up these houses, because you don't have to deal with the exterior of the properties. Basically either refinish cabinets or throw in some new cabinets and new countertops, new bathroom vanities and paint, maybe put some new door trim and light fixtures, and you're done. Honestly, if you're getting into this business, start out with that. The profit may be less, but the work is significantly less.
Yeah, I've done some projects like that, and it's amazing just how fast and quick and easy, because it really is purely cosmetic.
Yep.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so two questions here about when you decided to leave your full-time job. So first one, when did you decide to leave your job to do real estate full-time? So specifically, was there like X amount in the bank, something like that? What was a little bit more detail on your decision-making process?
Uh, it was more so, well, it was the experience that we had. It wasn't so. I've never collected a paycheck from my job, and that's something where we've reinvested every single penny back into our company for 5 years now. So it wasn't about necessarily the money in the bank. It was the pipeline that we had and the feeling that we had of that pipeline to make sure if all of a sudden I had $200,000 in the bank and I only had one property, probably not a good time to leave my job. But if I had $50,000 in the bank, my wife still got a steady income, and I have six properties going on at once. Well, I know that that's actually going to be pretty steady. I know when these properties are going to be finished and selling, and I can stack them and I can get them ready to go, and I can acquire new properties and keep that pipeline full. So it's not necessarily a number of or a dollar amount in your bank account. It's your steady workflow and your pipeline. And once you have a marketing system that's consistent, and when you have something that's consistent or properties coming in consistently, whether it's from your marketing, your networking or something, then that kind of seems like what you've done is working. And now maybe it's you're spending too much time at your job and you would be making more money working at it full time. That's kind of, and when I got into real estate, I actually transitioned job. I ended up working at a different job for a little less money that allowed me more freedom. So that's the reason. And I told them there that I was going to be quitting in 3 years. And actually, I did. I quit in 3 years. So it worked out. I set my goal and I actually met it. It was 3 years and 2 months. So I knew what I wanted to do when I went there, and they were okay with it. They didn't want me to actually leave at the time. They're like, well, we didn't think you were serious. No, I did this. This was my goal. And so it ended up working out great. But that's the reason I was able to leave. I don't do it out of a number in your bank account unless you have a financial budget set up where you know where every dollar is going to be spent every single month. And I'd wait till you have a steady streamline of deals coming in.
I love it. So here's one. You've mentioned you seem to have some connections, or you've gotten the inside scoop on some deals by working with the city. So what department in the city do you talk to or know to know the direction of different real estate opportunities? Is there something that do you have some
Planning and
relationships in
zoning.
that?
Yep.
Planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning committee actually meets. I think they meet at least once a month in most municipalities, maybe even more. And actually, in my own town, I was just elected as a city council member this in November. So I started my first city council term in January of this year. And I did that for experience in how to deal with local government. I was going to join the planning and zoning committee, but I got voted into city council. So, but yeah, so that way I know what the terminology they want to see, the proposals they want to see, because I'm getting presented the same stuff. And I mean, obviously you get to know the ins and outs, but it's all public knowledge. It's just you wouldn't look at it if you weren't required to. But yeah, I actually deal with the planning and zoning commissioner specific for each town, and ask them what they'd like to see and what they want to see, because they have a great feel. Not to mention, I did ask. I'm like, well, so are there any vacant buildable lots that you may know of? He's like, yeah, we have 47 buildable lots. Would you like the spreadsheet with all the addresses and the owner's information? I said, yes, I would. And he emailed it to me. And that's actually, if you ask, it's public knowledge.
That's interesting, right? Sometimes it's as easy as if you ask, then you can find out.
Yeah, it's
all you have to do is ask.
Yeah, and don't be afraid. I mean, they knew I was inexperienced when I bought that house to tear down. That was my second deal ever. But once I start asking the right questions, I mean, I still deal. I'm on a first name basis, and I have cell phone numbers to most of the city inspectors around the area, and I can just text message some pictures for some stuff, but also I can ask them, hey, who's building that new development? So instead of me getting on the computer and having to look up whose development is that over out there, they tell me who the development is. Oh, well, who's the main GC that's running it? And they'll tell me. It's like, oh, I know them. I'll reach out to them personally. So it's just asking the question.
Perfect. I love it. And I think that's a great one to wrap up on here. So, Anthony, really appreciate you sharing your journey here with us, walking us through kind of step by step how you got started, where your investing has taken you, and then, of course, what maybe even the future holds for you. So, really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around, especially in asking such great questions here at the end. Again, Anthony, what's the best way that somebody can reach out and find you?
Well, I'm available at Anthony at hcrevolutions.com, and that's I mean, we've seen it here. I'll go right back to the beginning here. HC Revolutions is my company, and just add Anthony at hcrevolutions.com, or you can reach out to me on Facebook, Anthony Verch. You can see my name there on the screen. I'm the one in Minnesota. I don't know if there's many Anthony Verch. I guess I haven't looked myself up, but I don't think there's a lot of me's. So, but no, I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story once again for you guys over there at Pine. Justin, you guys are great, and I had a great time. So if anybody has questions whatsoever, and I hope to be on again in the future next year when I have a few more deals to share and how some of my land development works out.
I love it. Sounds great. And of course, I'm Justin Cooper with Pine Financial Group, and we are hard money lenders. So if you ever have a need, a want, just want to explore further and learn more about hard money, we'd be happy to help. And you can find us at pinefinancialgroup.com. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next month on the next webinar.